Hi, and welcome to the Sermon Audio Podcast from Sunbury United Methodist Church in Sunbury, Ohio. If you're still learning about us, we would encourage you to stick around for some more information about who we are and what we do at the end of today's message. But for now, let's hop right into today's teaching.
I have found, and I wonder whether you have found the same. In fact, before I do that, does anybody have a basketball here? Nobody brought a basketball to church? I could have used it this morning in that as I have lived my life, there's been a number of myths that I have heard, been taught, and sometimes even believed. One of them was when I was younger, and I was told a myth that if I simply bounced the basketball enough times, that I could be the starting point guard on our high school basketball team. And you know what? I picked up a basketball, and I started dribbling. And I dribbled. It drove my mom crazy. Dribble it to the dining room table, dribble it to the bedroom. It didn't go in the shower with me. It stayed outside. Maybe that's why I never made the high school basketball team. But I believe that myth, that if I simply dribbled the basketball enough, that I would become the starting point guard at our high school. Oh, there was another myth that I believed, that I just had such incredible knowledge. It was in my teenage years. That I had such incredible knowledge that I was willing to share it with anyone, and especially my parents, who didn't quite meet the standard of knowledge that I had. You're chuckling. Some of you are experiencing this. You know, the time when you'd sit down and say, Mom, Dad, let's have this talk. I don't think you quite understand what's really happening out there. And it was a myth that I had all this knowledge that just oozing out, ready to be shared. And then one day I thought that I had so much knowledge that I didn't need to study for an exam. And you never guess what happened. That myth just exploded. I also, at one point in my life, as I was beginning to determine and decide what would I do for the rest of my life, I thought, you know what? Maybe I should be a doctor. I mean, I'm that brilliant. And if I just turn around and read some medical journals and everything, that, you know what, I would just be a shoo-in. And well, in fact, let me pause. Do you know why I got my doctorate? I was under the belief and understanding that nurses had to listen to doctors. And Catherine is a nurse. That was also a myth. That was also a myth. You know, there's another myth that's out there in our culture and society, and that is, you can be anything you want. You can have it all. It's yours. It's your right. But what I've discovered is this: with each myth, I made some choices. And every choice that I made then had ramifications that followed it. Because when I started to think more maturely, I began to realize that I can't have everything in life. And sometimes I still have a hard time letting go of that dream, that myth, that expectation of life. I still sometimes I entertain the notion that, well, if I just kind of massaged the myth a little bit that, well, I've come to the realization that it's more fun to believe in the myth than it is the reality of things. Because you see, it doesn't matter whether you're in your teens, it doesn't matter whether you're in your 30s or you're retired. We finally come to grips with the fact that the choices that we make and have made have lasting ramifications. And it's with that mindset that then we become so paralyzed when there's a choice to be made. That so much so that we say, well, I just don't know what to do. I mean, some of the questions for those that are coming into that age of developing a more permanent, serious relationship, you begin to be paralyzed by the question is she the right one for me? Or is he the one I want to spend the rest of my life with? Or what college should I go to? And when I get there, what major should I choose? And after I'm done with college, what job should I take? And yes, what church should we attend? Is now the time to change my career? And now that the kids are grown and out of the house, is this the time to downsize our household? For some of us later on, is this the time to retire? All with the hope that we will make the right choice. So you know what I learned? I've learned that most people hate making decisions. No, you make it. Mostly because we're terrified that we're going to make that wrong choice. But I have to say that still there's a part of us that says choosing, having that power to choose, it thrills us, and at the same time it scares the living daylights out of us. And yet choosing comes from the core of who we are. And yet we step back and we say, well, if I choose, there's no one to blame but me. There's nowhere else to hide. And that can be downright terrifying. A number of months ago, Catherine and I decided that it was good to have a date night. That was the easy choice. The choice that started the evening almost derailed the evening. Where are we going to go eat? I had very specific ideas of where we should eat. I thought McDonald's was a great choice. I mean, after all, when we were up in Maine on vacation, maybe a decade ago, as we were driving by, the McDonald's had McLobsters up there. I mean, that's a fine dining establishment if you got lobster, right? But Catherine had this idea that we should go to TGI Friday, and you'll never guess where we went. And as we sat down and as we looked at the menu, my mind started to swirl. There was pages and pages and pages of choices, and how would we ever choose what we were going to have and eat that night? And so what did we do? We started deferring a little bit, and well, Catherine, what do you think we should have? And well, I don't know. What are you feeling like? And then we ended up asking the waiter, what's good in this place? And so we started narrowing it down, and we started saying, well, what about this? Oh, that would be an excellent choice. Well, what about that? Oh. And so by the time that we ended up actually putting our order in, the waiter was saying, brilliant choice to Catherine's choice of food. I thought it was subpar, personally. And then when I ordered mine, he said, well, sir, that is just excellent. Made us feel great. Until we started listening to other tables. And they were ordering something else, and you know what? It was brilliant. And they were, it was excellent. Oh, perfect choice. And we came to dessert, and it was the same thing. So much so that I finally asked the waiter if he ever told someone it was a poor choice. And he said, oh, no, sir. No. He says, actually, corporate sent a whole list of suggested words to each manager that the waiter should be using with the customers, because they realized that customers were having a tremendously difficult time making a choice on what to eat. Even a question as simple as, do you want soup or salad, renders us totally vulnerable. So much so that TGI Friday decided to turn their waiters and waitresses into therapists for us. You know, we have a same and similar situation with the things of God and the work that God asks us to be involved in. Sometimes we become so terrified about making a decision because we're not sure if it's the right one that God is really asking us. And we look for those affirmations along the way, and when decisions are necessary in the life of the church. In fact, our lesson that this sermon is drawn on us from the book of Joshua. When they were coming into the promised land, they had wandered for 40 years, and God had provided for them. And Joshua, repeatedly, you could tell the history. They had followed, they had turned away from God. They followed, they turned away from God. And Joshua said, now that you're coming into this land that God has given you, this land of milk and honey, it's now time for you to choose. You have a choice. You have a choice. Who are you going to follow? Are you going to follow all the other gods that the countries and nations around are worshiping, or are you going to follow the Lord your God, who brought you through Egypt and provided for you throughout the wilderness? What choice are you going to make? Interestingly enough, if you look at the Latin, the word to decide means to cut off. If you're making a decision, you're cutting off other possible choices. That's probably why the writer Sam Keen describes the process of making a decision as a castration of other choices. And he adds that we travel one path only when we choose to neglect other paths that are before us. Because if there's one thing that our culture, we want to keep our options open. We hear it from every medium that we have around us. We don't want to lock in. We don't want to put aside the other possibilities that are there. We don't choose a school to go to for college because there just might be a better offer just down the road. We don't choose a spouse because we're not sure that there might be someone that's just a little more glamorous than the person who's proposed to me. Unless we think it's only an issue for the young, just think of that term, middle-age crisis, where people in a certain stage of life begin to look back and they say, the choices I made has kept me from following these things that I now currently find totally attractive. And even our commitments and long-term relationships don't fit into that forever choice. And so Joshua brings the people together. He brings the people together and he says, this is the time, my friends, for you to make a choice. Before you come into this promised land, it's time for you to make a choice. What choice are you going to make? Are you going to follow God and God's ways, or are you going to follow the ways of the people that are here? Are you going to worship God, or are you going to worship the ways that the pagans worship? And remember that God is the one who brought you all the way through life and through the wilderness and provided for you each day. But the choice is still yours. What choice are you going to make? And right away they started and they said, well, we're going to follow God. And Joshua says, hold on a second. You need to understand that God, this choice is a once in a lifetime choice. You make this choice, there's no turning back from this choice. If you're going to follow God, that's what it is. So choose carefully and cautiously, because God, and the words that he uses, is a jealous God. A God that likes to have everyone embrace in a forever type of embrace. Joshua says, you can't keep your options open with this choice. And then he takes the bold statement of raising his hand in front of all the leaders and in front of the entire congregation and says, as for me, I make the choice that I am following God. As for my household, I make the choice that I will lead my household in the ways of God. Boy, a tough choice to make. Oh, they right away say, yes, we're in. And Joshua says, not so fast. This is a big choice. It's a forever choice. Take your time. But the people are adamant. And they still say, we're in with God. We've seen what God does. You've explained this very well. And Joshua still says, hold on, I want to be very clear. If you raise your hand today and you say that you're going to follow God, then you, all of us, are witnesses to that choice that you're making. And they say, yes, we're in. You see, it's a hard thing to do for us today because there's that tension. I live it every day. That tension of saying, I've got other options. And yet, the choice I made was a lifetime choice. Oh, look through the Bible, my friends. Confirm this for yourself. The Bible's full of people who made that one-time choice. Think of Noah. And the choice he made to say, I know that it's never rained before. I know people think I'm crazy, but I'm going to choose to build this ark because God said a flood is coming. Think of Abraham, who turned around and left his homeland and all that he knew because God said, I want to take you and I want you to be the father of my people. Think about several centuries later when Elijah stood before a generation and said, listen, folks, you made a choice. How long are you going to neglect the choice that you made? If the Lord is your God, then follow him. And if it's Baal, then follow Baal. And even centuries later, Jesus challenged some as he was starting his ministry, saying, come, follow me. And then Jesus says, if you decide to follow me, you can't put your hand to the plow. You can't start and then say, oh, this is no good. Make a forever choice. And Jesus actually lived that as well as he was in Gethsemane and he was praying. And he said, I made the choice to follow your will, God. So, not my will. It's your will. You want me to go to the cross and die for the world so that they might be saved and know the love that you have for the world? That's the choice I made in the beginning, to follow you, Jesus said, even to the death on the cross. You see, making forever choices, it's a part of who we are as a Christian. I have a friend. Well, I have more than one friend. Deeply committed Christian. He's a smart guy. But I've told him this in person. I said, sometimes you lack that imagination. Think outside the box. But this is how he works. When someone asks him to do something or to be a part of something, he stops. And you can see the wheels turning. You can see the wheels turning. He's seeing if he makes this choice to do this, will it line up with the commitment he made to God and to Jesus Christ? And if it doesn't match up, guess what? You can't change his mind. He made a decision to follow Jesus Christ and to follow the ways of God. He is that single-mindedness that's there that I wish that we all had. So my friends, have you been on the fence? Let me rephrase that. If you've been on the fence about following Jesus, making that choice, let me encourage, I want to choose a stronger word, let me urge you to make that choice, to respond to that call, so much so that God has control of all the other choices in your life from this day forward. And if you've already made that choice, then I want to urge you to hold on tight and fast to that and use it as the starting point when other choices come your way and it demands you to start rethinking about what are you going to do next. And do not waver on how you will live your life. Live it like Jesus lived his life. Live it in the way that Jesus challenged the people of his day. Live it in the way that he heard the story of Joshua years ago, centuries ago, challenged the people of his day to choose, to cut off all other avenues and opportunities. Choose who you will serve. And may we, as a church at Sunbury, say, as for us, not only leaders, but for us as a people of God, we choose to serve the Lord our God. And God's people said, amen.
Thanks for listening to this sermon audio. Our church is located in Sunbury, Ohio, just northeast of the greater Columbus metro area. We've often been called the Church at the Crossroads due to our location at the corner of State Routes 3 and 37 in the heart of our community. If you're ever able to come visit us, you will find that we're passionate about loving God and serving all people. We would love for you to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at SunburyUMC. You can also visit our website at sunburyumc.org. We hope you'll tune back in for more of our teachings, and if you're ever in town, we'd love to see you.